What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Me TV Reviews. I am your host, Mo, and tonight, we're going to be discussing Rainmaker. That's right, y'all. This is season 1, episode 6, titled Episode 6. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week thus far. Y'all, we're almost done with this thing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the synopsis real quick, and then we're going to get right into the episode. So the synopsis for this one is Rudy continues to defend his client while Sarah faces new temptations in London with Leo and Brad. Y'all, my friend checked out this episode before I did, and she said it was good. And it was going to have you wanting more. This episode was really good, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the episode opens with Sarah touching down in London. And so the place where they're meeting with their client is given regal countryside. Okay. Very posh. They've got the Victorian rooms and all the decor. It's cute. So the concierge greets them at the door, and while Sarah didn't come with any bags because, she wasn't expecting to fly overseas, she didn't have time to pack, and the concierge was like, "Oh, girl, you ain't even got to worry about that. Your boss, they've already taken care of that. Now, they got you the size that they thought you might wear and a size up just in case." Okay. But I think they might have been spot on. Now, this is how you treat your staff, okay? Because she ended up walking into the room, y'all, and her bed was filled with nothing but Gucci, Louis, Prada all over the place, spread all over the bed. Yeah, she can definitely get used to this. Now, across the pond, Rudy is trying to shop around for a job. Okay, so he's at the bar, and he's taking these personal phone calls, and Prince was like, "Hey, man, this ain't no unemployment office. Do that off the clock on your own time." So he was like, "Oh, my bad." My bad, dog. So Rudy ends up trying to borrow some money from him, and Prince was like, "Hey, man, so I don't think that that's a good idea. I'm not one of them type of dudes that you want to have to owe money to. So if you need shifts, I got you. But as far as the money thing go, no, you gonna have to go to your nearest Bank of America, Regions, Wells Fargo, wherever you bank at, because I'm not the one nor the two to be your financier, okay? Now, Bruiser is at the office and she's conducting interviews to try to replace Rudy. And of course, everybody is a dud. There is no replacing him. So Deck reminds her that while Rudy may be emotional, while he might be temperamental, very hot-headed, if you will, he's not wrong about a killer running free because of the hospital's negligence. Even she agreed to that, right? You remember you did agree that Rudy was right about that, right? You do remember that. And she was like, yeah. All right, whatever. That's where the $80 million offer came from, after all. And so he suggests that they hire Rudy back, but Bruiser's pride is not ready to have her give in so quickly. So it's going to still be a no for now. Now, in the meantime, they need to keep their eye on the prize, starting with Bernie Manfred. Now, Bernie is the guy who is the VP of quality control at the hospital. The same guy that Jackie met with 2 days before her disappearance. Okay, it's going to be time for his deposition shortly, so they got to keep their head in the game. Now, Rudy ends up visiting his mom, and while he's at the house, he ends up going into his brother's room. And so she sneaks in on him, and she hints to him that, don't you think it's about time for us to move on from, your brother and trying to live up to the expectations that they had for his life, and you just gonna have to realize that your brother is no longer here. There's nothing that you can do for that. You can't try to make it a point to start. You need to start living for you, okay, and not try to finish what you think his legacy would have been like by trying to fulfill his dreams. You got to live for yourself. You have to get it together. And so she ended up bringing up the fact that multiple bosses, Bruiser and Leo, had both let him go because of his mouth and your issues with coloring inside the lines. You tend to step outside the boundaries And you just can't do that. Not just yet. Okay, it's too early in the game. So you need to get it together. Now, over dinner, the fellas are toasting it up to Sarah and her latest victory against her paramour, Rudy. Now, I told y'all I don't like that CEO. So the fact that he was talking about, yeah, you mopped the floor with him. And I was like, yeah, no, she didn't do that. She didn't do that. He got overzealous. Okay, you went too fast. You jumped the gun quite a bit, Rudy, and you gave her the win. Okay. Now Leo informs her that word on the curb is that her boo thing is currently unemployed, and so her feelings were hurt a little bit about that. And he ends up telling her that, yep, he got the boot from Bruiser. So this makes her feel away. But Leo poses the question about, let's not worry about him. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years from now? Okay, do you want to be a part of the staff or do you want to be a part of the management team? So she ends up doing this quote because y'all know she has a thing for the first quote of a book. So she does a quote and he recognizes it as Dickens. All right. So her and Leo are on the same page. She wants to be a part of management. She sees herself amongst the greats over there at Tinsley and firm. Tinsley Brook. What's the name of the firm, y'all? Tinsley and something. Tinsley and Mistletoe. So the next day, Leo and CEO boss, because I don't know his name, are enjoying a round of golf. Okay, and so the CEO boss is expressing his concerns about what it's going to take for this case to be over and done with. Now, Brad had reassured him some time ago that they had someone working on the case talking about G.I. Jane over there. But of course, we know she's out of commission, right? But he don't know that. So Leo was like, yeah, sometimes it takes just having to hire a special person to do a particular thing for you. So don't fret. Leo is on the case. Now, Sarah and Brad join one of her friends for drinks at the bar as her friend recounts the story of how Sarah damn near burnt down the building on campus trying to shoot the short film. Now, unbeknownst to her, one of the one of the furnaces or something had blew. Okay. Had the whole building going up in flames, and so they ended up taking her to court about it, and she got into some serious trouble. Okay. So they laugh it off because it's past them now. They had a good giggle about it, and he ends up excusing himself to go to the bathroom. So while he's gone, the girls is doing that girl talk about her and Rudy and them breaking up and how Brad is major eye candy for her. Now, his face, even though she says that he looks very handsome, y'all, he looks, maybe it's the stress of the job. He look old, y'all. Brad looked like he is in his late 30s, early 40s. Okay. Now, listen, we're all consenting adults at this point. Sarah can date whoever she wants to date. I'm just saying, if you look at him long enough, y'all, he kind of puts you in the mind frame of the Crimson Chin on the Fairly Odd Parents. His face just is not as round. It's very like muscular and toned, but he's got a chin on him. Crimson Chin, y'all, Crimson Chin. So, so they're having a girl talk, and he comes back and he helps her to her room. Now, she done had a more than her fair share of drinks tonight, so she's kind of tipsy. She's stumbling up the stairs, and she's blaming it on the heels. Okay, when all else fails, it's the heels. It's not you. So he walks her to her door, and they share a kiss, and things are getting hot and heavy. And she was like, when are we supposed to be leaving? And he was like, we got an early flight to catch in the morning. And so she's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we better call it a night. So he was like, okay, cool. Now, if you change your mind, you know where to find me. And so, of course, he ends up walking over to his room, which is right across the hallway. And she thinks about it for a second, and then she decides to go on over and join him for a late night romp. And playing in them sheets. It's too early. It's too early in your professional career to be mixing business with pleasure like this. Okay. Now, I do have a question for y'all. Are y'all down with the workroom romps, with the workroom romances? I couldn't, but I do know people that do. Okay. Y'all stay safe out there, and make sure you stay in real close contact with the HR person just in case. Now, Rudy meets with Deck to try to make things right. And Deck was like, yeah, no, we way past that. Okay. This thing is so tight up our butts. We need an enema to try to squeeze out a victory for this one. Because ain't no way. It's just not looking good right now. And besides, you don't work there anymore. So there's not much that can be done. All right. You're just going to have to let it be. Quit calling my phone. Okay. I'm glad that we was able to have lunch. I had to wear a disguise, a hat, and no glasses. I had to wear a disguise, and we had to meet 30 miles out of town just so we could have this conversation, because I don't need this getting back to Bruiser. Well, she can't fire you too, right? She needs one of y'all. So he was like, yeah, it's nothing else that we can really do about it right now. What's done is done, and we'll just have to see where the chips fall. And so Rudy ends up going to go meet up with Dot after that, and he tries to tiptoe around the subject just a little bit about him being fired and what's going to be happening next. But Dot wants him to find a way to get the tissue committee reports, because if what happened to her son happened to his brother, he'd stop at nothing to get to the bottom of the truth, or to get to the bottom of what's going on. And so he was like, yeah, I mean, you got a point. You got a point there. So he gonna do what he can. Now, in the midst of their conversation, we do find out that his brother, we knew that he died from a car accident. But we didn't know that his brother had struck a deer, and his brother wasn't wearing a seatbelt, y'all. Wear your seatbelts. They save lives, y'all. Now, they may split your spleen, but, I'd rather them do a repair on your spleen than be sewing you up so you can get viewed for your funeral. Okay? So be safe, y'all. So he then visits Kelly at the hospital, where she explains what happened the night that she ended up in said hospital, and how she had been saving. She had been stashing this money away to try to escape from her abusive husband, Cliff. But now he done took her money. And, the last thing she remembers is being confronted by him and waking up in the hospital the next day. Yeah, definitely did a number on her. I didn't know that. I think he might have broke her foot or fractured her something in her foot, because she's got a boot on too, y'all. So he did a horrible number on her. So anyway, she has nowhere to go. And, Rudy is going to come up with something. He always does. And so as he's leaving, he almost gets ran down by Bernie Manfred. He is zooming out of the hospital. Okay. Now, he didn't know that was Bernie until he happened to look over and saw that this was his designated parking spot. Okay. So, anywho, he ends up going to the bar, and he's working. But it's very slow right now. So he's scrolling through his socials, and he ends up seeing a pic of Sarah, right? A pic of Sarah and her friend when she was in London. And wouldn't you know it, in the background of said picture, it's Brad. Yeah. Looking like he's uberly annoyed to be in the picture. So I was like, yeah, Rudy, whatever you feeling right now, it's accurate. It's very accurate. And so he ends up getting a call from Kelly. And Kelly is basically just trying to check and see if his offer still stands. Now, she politely had turned him down a time or two before about, letting him help her. But things have gotten real at this point. She's finna get ready to discharge, and he says that he'll be on his way in an hour. So Rudy was like, okay, cool, bet. I'll be there in 20. So he's finna get ready to leave out the door. But before he leaves, he has to tell Prince where he's going. And so Prince was like, hey, wait a minute. Where you going? Okay, why are you doing that? Does her husband know that you exist? And he was like, yeah, he know I exist. Okay, well, so if I was her husband and I went up there to get her and she wasn't there, I would first look to find you and where you lay your head at. Okay. And if I couldn't find her there, then I would start branching out to your family members. See, I'm not him. I'm just telling you how a man like him would probably think. Okay. So if you gonna really be involved in this lady's life like that and take on those risks, then you're going to have to hide her somewhere where he would never think to look, ever. And so he ends up taking Prince's advice. Now, Rudy had said that he was initially going to hide her at his mom's house, which I was like, okay, that makes sense. Do I think that Cliff would go to those lengths to get her back? No, because he's a coward, right? But some things can happen. So instead of him taking her to his mom's house, he decides to take her to Dot's house. That was a really good decision. So she gets out there, and of course, Dot is loving on her already, and she affirms to Rudy that he is exactly who she believed him to be. He's a good guy. So glad he could get Kelly out of that situation. Okay. So Sarah and Brad board the jet after they done had this very drunken, delightful night. Leo shows Brad something on his phone, and so Brad after that comes to check on her and check the temple where they stand. Okay, now he don't mind a fun night here and there, but if you really ask him what he want to do, he's more than willing to take it to the next level if she is. Okay, but for now, for Sarah, she's okay with fun. Okay, it's too early in the game. She's still trying to figure out things with Rudy. And even though she said that they've broken up, it's clearly a whole bunch of love still there for them. And so it's going to be hard to navigate for a while. So he then reveals the Bruiser is willing to negotiate a little bit, or at least be in talks about a potential settlement, which is good. But now this has Sarah wondering what was so important in them files that just by losing that hearing, now we've done almost a complete about face, because you were so convinced that y'all was finna win this case. $80 million lawsuit. And now you trying to come down to 250, possibly? That's quite a jump. So what was on those files? And so he was like, don't worry about that. Okay, you get you some rest, girl. You let us figure out the rest of this. Okay. Now, Bruiser meets with Leo later on to see if they could reach some sort of settlement number, and Leo refuses to play ball with her and even tells her, hey, so we got this deposition coming up now. If you let this deposition start, the price is going to be cut in half. And I mean, by the time you get ready to pay her, after you pay her, you just going to be reduced to operational fees. So you just going to be doing this for the free, basically. So he was like, "No, I'm good on that. I'll see you. You got some time to think about it, but you need to let me know something real soon, okay? Because the money, time is money, and you ain't gonna have a lot of it. You keep playing around." So Sarah tries to find out what's on the documents, but when she has the guy look it up, because she tried to play it like she was just getting the information for Brad. Right. And so he was like, oh, this information is not where you can find it on any of these computers. It's on the internal computer. Okay. That has all of the super sensitive case files on it. Now, if you ain't got the right credentials, then you ain't going to be able to gain access. So she go over there and she try looking. Wouldn't you know it, her credentials are not good enough. They are not up to standards right now. Okay. So So much for that. So she goes to see Rudy, who's at the bar, and he's currently on the phone with Deck when she walks in. He's trying to get information out of Deck about when Bernie went to have this meeting with Jackie. And so he was like, oh, it was on September the 2nd. And quit calling my phone. It's like, Trick, quit calling me. I ain't gonna pick the phone up. So Bernie had his meeting with Jackie on that day, and he briefly talks to Sarah. And she tries to see what would be the motive for them to allow Melvin to slide on all of these various accusations, knowing that he's knocking folks off left and right. Why would they let him get away with something like that? And so Rudy was like, I don't know. But he ends up meeting up with an old friend who fills him in about the officers of corporations having these files within the SEC databases, right? So every officer that's a part of a corporation, they have to have a file pertaining to them and how they move within the SEC, like stocks and all of those things, right? So I guess the more marks you have on there, the worse off you are. Okay. So after he gets his friend to do a check on Bernie, he comes to the deposition and he is actually able to convince Bruiser to allow him to question old Bernie. Now, he has sent the message to Deck, and Deck was like, oh man, this is good. So he ran out to talk to him. And then here comes Bruiser, and she was like, oh, Deck, you in on this too? And he was like, just hear him out. Just hear him out. He got some good stuff. And so he was like, I think I can get him to waive the rights for like the tissue committee. So like basically, as long as you don't mention that a tissue committee exists, then it can't be brought into court without them mentioning it first. Okay. So Bruiser was like, what you gonna do? And he was like, I'm gonna annoy the hell out of him. And I'm gonna annoy him so much that he gonna end up bringing it up so we can waive it. So we can see or waive the privileges. Yeah. So they'll have access to the documents after that. All right. So she was like, okay. I mean, you done screwed up. Enough as is. We ain't got nothing to lose at this point. So Rudy go in there and turns out, y'all, dude been doing some serious flexing towards the back end of September, early October. Bernie, that is. Which means that Bernie done got broke off a nice piece of change. Okay? Who done paid you off? What done recently happened with your bank account? Because based off your position, you shouldn't be living like that. You shouldn't be living in that type of lap of luxury. Okay? You only making about $150, if that, per year. You ain't got enough money to be traveling to the Maldives and Bora Bora and all of those nice places that you only see on the screensavers on the computer. Or at least that's probably just me, y'all. I ain't got enough money for that. But apparently he do. Now in the deposition, Rudy asked him about his meeting with Jackie, why she and Melvin were fired, and if he had a stock package through the company. Okay. And so Leo and them objected several times, which I mean, I guess that's a bad thing in a deposition, because the more you object, then the worse off you guys look. It really makes y'all look suspicious, like you're hiding something. But they then got old Bernie to finally bring up the tissue committee, which is a oh no type of situation. Okay, that's all they needed them to do. Just open up the door. Let me get my foot in the door just a little bit. Now, along with Bernie himself admitting that Jackie got booted for violating HIPAA, that's the privacy acts. Like, you can't be going around looking at people's information if you're not taking care of them. She violated that law 15 times, y'all. Okay. We also find out that the massive layoffs that they were claiming Jackie and Melvin were a part of, yeah, no, that was a lie. That ended a year ago. That ended the year before this whole thing even started. So they done caught Bernie up in a couple of lies. Okay, done got him tripping all over his feet at this point. Um, and then they also go on to say that Bernie had started his stocks had vested in 2013. So I guess they started growing, or you can actually do something with your stocks after X amount of time. Well, his stocks had vested in 2013, and so over he held those stocks for 41 quarters, y'all. 41 quarters. That is a really long time. Okay? So he held onto those stocks for 41 quarters, but after meeting with Jackie, and we found out that he met with his boss the day after his meeting with Jackie, he suddenly decided to cash out his stocks. Why? And he didn't fire Jackie on the 2nd. He fired her on the 9th, but he had a meeting with her on the 2nd, and then he had a meeting with his boss on the 3rd, and then she got fired on the 9th. Yeah. So after he made mention of the tissue committee, Leo and them ended the deposition. And Bruiser was like, that's okay, because we got what we needed. You got 24 hours to hand over all the information pertaining to the tissue committee, or it's going to be some consequences and repercussions. Point blank, period. So, a huge win for Rudy, y'all. Now, Sarah was pissed because when he walked in, he had on her suit, y'all. Y'all remember she had bought him this stuffy ass suit. And so she was like, oh, nice suit. And they're looking at her like, you know, she was trying to be sarcastic. Rudy knew what she meant by it. But yeah, he was like, I commend you. You definitely won that hearing that me and you had the first time, but he was ready. He was ready this time. He gonna fight for what's right. So, after they left out, Leo is reprimanding Brad because apparently he had objected way too many times, and then how did he say it? Severely object or something like that? I don't know, y'all. It was something with an S. But either way, you're not supposed to object that many times because it definitely shows that you're hiding something. It's sending out the red flags left and right. Okay? And so he ends up hitting Sarah against Brad just a little bit because she understood what happened and why he shouldn't have done that. And so he was like, it seemed like you want to give Sarah your gun and go over there and join the hostages against the wall. Damn, wasn't you just talking about how you couldn't trust Sarah, how you was just using her to get the Rudy? Brad told you not to let her stay on here, but I mean, Brad is crumbling at this point as well. So you ain't got nobody. Leo, you just need to do this one yourself. Don't even wait on nobody else. But some nefarious shenanigans are definitely underway. Now, I did forget to mention the fact that Rudy not only passed the bar, y'all, but it took so long for him to get his results because he had the highest score. I think his mama said within the last 10 years or in the history of the bar. So super intelligent, y'all. That's what took so long because they had to verify that he hadn't cheated. So they finally end up going to the graveyard, and he thanks his brother for always being there. He gave him the coin. You always there when I need you. You always come through in the clutch, bruh. Okay, I appreciate that. Now back at the office, they end up going through all the files, and they conclude that old boy Bernie had got spooked and sold his stocks after Jackie came to him and the committee with her suspicions about Melvin. She believed that the death count didn't stop at Donnie. Now, y'all remember it's about 12 of them on this committee. She's the only nurse, okay? Now, unbeknownst to Rudy and them, 6 of the other board members wanted a further investigation into what was going on with Melvin, but they stopped the hearing and they sent her over to Bernie. Now, she tried to tell Bernie what was going on with Melvin, and they realized that the 15 HIPAA violations that Jackie had committed are because she was looking into other potential victims of Melvin's. Yeah, those other 15. Oh, there's something. much more sinister at play here, y'all. That's so crazy. Okay, so of course, if you listen to true crime, then you know that there are several instances of medical professionals doing the ultimate harm to their patients and then having like this hero complex where they try to kill them and then come in and save them. I was listening to something I want to say earlier this year where it was like it was a it was a nurse, and I believe it was a guy that it was like Dr. Death, a nurse of death, angel of death, something like that, y'all, where the nurse was giving the patients insulin. They were crashing, like coding. And then they would come in and save them. And sometimes they would bring them back just for him to kill them off. Like they would code again and then die. And so I want to say that the count unfortunately got up to like the 30s or something like that before people's antennas started going off. It was a really good true crime podcast, and I can't even remember where I listened to it at, but it was like it's crazy how you can get into a profession to want to help people heal on their worst day, and you the reason why they don't make it out the hospital. But yeah, they're just trying to see if Melvin is got a serial killer streak in him. It sounds like he do. Now we done see him drop off the guy, the neighbor, and I think he killed his mama too, y'all. So he's definitely a serial killer in our book already. It's just a matter of how much they can prove at this point. But that's the way the episode ends, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about it, okay? You can reach me at Me and You TV Reviews on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also reach me at My TV Reviews Podcast without the S on the end at gmail.com. Really good episode, you guys. I enjoyed that episode. I cannot wait to see what happens this Friday. Now, if you are watching along with cable television, then you know that the new episodes show up on USA on Fridays. Okay. So I will try to get that review out to you guys earlier than next Wednesday. We still do have Life After Lockup, Reasonable Doubt, Only Murders in the Building, High Potential. And I feel like I'm missing a show. We just got done with Wednesday. So that's the show that I'm missing, y'all. But if you have any other show suggestions, please let me know. I will try to get to them depending on how busy I am. I do work full time and I got a household to maintain. So if you have any show suggestions, please send them my way. Spooky season is coming, so I'm trying to figure out which movie I want to do. I always do a movie at the end of October. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Okay, might help narrow down my choices. Okay, but that's all I have for now. You guys stay safe out there. Have a wonderful weekend coming up, and until we meet over the airwaves again, I am Mo, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.